Hello and welcome to the Angry Ewok channel. Today we're going to be discussing something I call combat maneuvering. It's something that I do sometimes at home by myself when I'm trying to perfect a fleet that I plan to take, seriously. In-person games are hard to come by, and when you get the chance to fly in person, you don't want to be making mistakes like allowing your large ships to get boxed in by your small ships, or allowing your flotillas to become trapped and bumping into your stuff. You also don't want to be flying a fleet for the first time against somebody good and not have your dominant arcs on a single target. We're going to go through some examples, some things that I do sometimes to try to alleviate that, to try to get used to a fleet and see if it's something that you want to put the time and the effort into honing into a fleet that you would take to a competition or to fly against a competent opponent that you want to improve your game with. We'll come back with some examples. So one of the first things I like to do is practice getting all my shots on the same target. And the best way to do that, I've found, is to practice against a non-moving target first. We want a static target. So I'll use this Star Destroyer as my example. And what I'll do is I'll take the fleet that I'm expecting to fly and I'll deploy it in a way that I typically, that makes sense to me. A realistic deployment is what we're looking for here. And I'll go to the effort of setting speeds. Like for example, I typically would deploy a CR90 at speed 3, and so on and so forth. And I'll set all my speeds, set all my dials, even position my squadrons if I anticipate using squadrons. And then the exercise will be to simply go through the muscle memory motions of flying this fleet with the intention of trying to put as many double arcs onto this target as possible while not getting in the way of my delaying activations. Like for example, I don't want to have my flotilla deployed here or fly in such a way that when it goes early in the round, it's going to bump into something. Also, I want to try to make sure that any special triggers that I want to have, like for example, Torn Far, needs to be in range. So I need to consider where I place that in relation to the rest of my fleet. Can I push my squadrons? Are my squadrons in a position to activate off of my big carrier if I need to? So we'll come back in a minute after I've gone through some movements here, and we'll look at this again. So after my first turn, I did all my moving, I did all my token slinging, and then at the end of the turn, I like to stop and assess where I'm at. And again, we're going against a static target, so we're not worried about the Star Destroyer moving. We're just trying to put our guns on a non-moving target. If you can't hit a stationary target, there's no way you're hitting a moving target. So we'll look here, and after my first turn, I used my different dials as I would in real life. I got to speed 2 here with an engine tech. I ended up coming here and banking my token and slinging a token that he ended up using. And then you see our arcs. What I've achieved here is I've got a front arc shot here, a front arc shot here. I missed this double arc, which I tried to get but couldn't really facilitate. Here, I also missed the double arc because as I was flying, I realized that if I came over to turn my side over to get that double arc, I would be pointing into him. And so I chose not to do that. That being said, him being here was probably a bad idea. He probably would have been better served out here. So that's an example of after flying this, thinking, okay, well, how could I improve this? I do have a double arc at red range off of the assault cruiser. So we'll fly a couple more turns of this and try to see if we can maintain our different arcs on this target. Again, a not moving target for now, trying to make sure that we don't get in our own way. Now, something that I've created here unintentionally is that right now, this slow speed 2 assault cruiser is gonna have to move forward. He'll be somewhere in this general area. Again, because this CR90 is here, I will probably have to almost be forced to go first with this guy, get to comms net over navigate, dial up a navigate command so that I can get to 4 and clear and get to where I should have been earlier. I can take that lesson and next time I fly this fleet, probably put him here outside so that I don't have to do all that. So I'm not activation locked by having to get the token from the comms net and then take the dial and click out. That will make it much easier to be going with the ship that I want to be doing damage with instead of going with ships that I need to fix flight position problems that I inflicted on myself. That's the benefit of this. So let me stop it. So we come back to our turn 2, and you can see after my movements, I did exactly what I talked about, you know, slinging my token over, moving my CR90 here to get him out of a bad spot. And these are the arcs. I've got a pair of arcs from this guy at blue range, a pair of arcs from this guy at blue range, and then depending on the activation order, you know, I'll probably clear with him and we'll have a red range shot here. So I've got 5 arcs on the same target. Now, that's the kind of stuff that you want to be doing with your fleet, making sure that you're not getting in your own way and making sure that you're putting your most powerful arcs on target at the proper ranges for that ship. Now, obviously, we're not shooting stuff that's sitting still. So the next evolution of this is to get that thing moving. And you can do this as simply as moving the one ship every turn. Like do all your moves and then have it move. Do all your moves and have it move. And that can be of some value. But the next iteration, the way that you make this more realistic is you go out and you find fleet lists. That could be, you could go to the Steel Strategy website and look at the 70-some lists from Vassal World Cup. Pick one, put it on the other side of the table, and then fly against it. And what we're trying to achieve here is we're trying to create the back and forth alternate activation problem and simulate trying to do the same thing against moving targets. And that is much harder. So we'll come back with some things that you can try to focus in on and improve on when you have that scenario going. So this is an example of a fleet-on-fleet combat maneuvering scenario that we can do. So as we transition, this is probably not 400 points worth of something. It's just something I threw together as an example. But as these two fleets close, we are going through the motions of one ship activating, another ship activating, back and forth, and trying to maintain our arcs and our positions and not get in our own way. And for example, that CR90 that I was putting on both sides, I've decided to rotate it out here. And so as I was moving this fleet, I ended up with CR90 here. It's much safer than if it was over here. That's something that we took from a previous lesson and applied it to this particular scenario. So let's say, for example, that we have done all of the moves in round 2 except for this this Starhawk has yet to go, and this CR90 is yet to go because we're holding them off. So what you'll see a lot of times is you can do, and you're guessing about what the opponent will do. You can't be certain, but you're just trying to get the muscle memory of flying a fleet and flying it well down. You don't want to be learning how to fly in a game against a living, breathing opponent. No football team practices a play the first time in the game. So you should not do the same thing in Armada. So we'll move this guy here. So now we have a CR90 that's going first next round that wants to be able to hurt this guy. So we want to be able to try to approach to a particular range band. There's something else that I will focus in on when I'm flying is trying to either be exactly outside of a range band, like for example, if I were able to drop in outside of blue range here, obviously, if he were going first, I would want to try to drop in outside of blue range to deny him 3 more of his dice. But as I'm planning on going first because of the activation situation here, I fully intend to approach into blue range, and then I want to set myself up to be able to get out to a safe arc next round. So we may take this CR90 and make our move to be something like this. And the thing that we're checking for is to make sure that we actually achieve that blue range. Because in a game, you may miss that by a couple millimeters, and you're missing out on 3 dice in this case, potentially, with a Confire. And so then that muscle memory will translate to a live fire exercise as well. So then we can go first with this guy. We'll dial in a navigate, and we'll try to clear to a safe location. Our next round will be something hopefully safer. This is my Janus light, so I don't give a crap about that rock. But we'll do something like this and end up here, and we're going to be checking to see if we could clear blue range, and in that scenario, I'm pretty sure we did not. Yeah, we're in blue range. So when that happens, stop. because you're not fighting another person. You have the opportunity to back this up, to rewind the clock and go here and do it over again. And say, for example, in that scenario, you think to yourself, well, I have Hondo Onaka on this flotilla. I could have popped Hondo, gotten a navigate command, paired it with my navigate dial, and gone speed 4, and done this. And been well outside of blue range, and probably in a position to bump this flotilla, to create a bumpage situation on that flotilla. Now, this is a much safer position, and hopefully we learn from that, so when it's time to apply this in an actual game, we remember the position, we have the muscle memory, we've seen it, we've done it, and we can apply it when it matters. So why do I do this combat maneuvering drill? Well, some people sit in their basement and they fly against themselves and they roll dice and they have a good time. The intent here is not to simulate a game. The intent here is to go through the steps and create the muscle memory of flying a fleet. I don't even use dice most of the time because dice variance adds nothing to the positional understanding of your fleet. We want to be doing this against a moving target, like we said. Once we progress to flying against a moving target, we also get the benefit of seeing how activation order matters. We also get the benefit of lining up double arcs, not where they are, but where they will be. Especially as second player, that's critical because you cannot, like if you out-activate them and you know that you can wait them out, you know they're going to have to move at least one forward, and you can line up arcs against a moving target. That is massively important. So, the summary is, if you want to play baseball, you hit, you catch, you run. If you want to play Armada, you fly ships and you line up arcs, because flying is critical to a good Armada fleet, and not getting in your own way and creating log jams with your other ships or having your squadron so spread out that you can't command them are basic things that you have to have figured out for your particular fleet. And that keeps you from making these mistakes against an opponent and giving them a bad chance to improve, and you not getting a lot of tactical learning from that game, instead of focusing on the basics that you didn't do properly. That's all for today. We'll come back in a video later discussing basic information and basic things that players that want to progress from beginner to intermediate need to understand, like for example, dice probabilities. If you don't know what your dice are, you have no way of making informed decisions about what you want to be concentrating fire into, what kind of shots what kind of results you should be expecting from your ships. Without that baseline knowledge and several other things, it doesn't work. And we'll discuss that later. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.